This is a shipwright's axe. It's also known as a masting axe and possibly a New England hewing axe. In this video, we're going to take a close look at this axe head, and I'm going to show you all the things that I see that make this collectible. So first I want to note that this is not a hewing hatchet, it's its own pattern, and it is symmetrical in design. It is also quite a bit heavier than a hewing hatchet and quite a bit more rare than a hewing hatchet. And for an example, this is a hewing hatchet. We can see that it is an asymmetrical cheek design and a single bevel. Now, to me, the most collectible axes in my book are the ones that are handed down from family or given to you by a close friend. The sentimental value of one of those axes far outweighs the value of a other collectible axe. I'm lucky enough that this one was given to me by a really good friend, Barry. Thank you very much. He found this at the Packwood Flea Market. If you guys haven't been to that, apparently it's like a mile-long flea market and there's axes all over the place. Lucky enough, this was given to me by a friend, and also it's a pretty collectible piece. Now, the first thing that stands out is it's a Legitimus, but we'll get to this later. What's more interesting is this product number. Now, I initially thought that this number 852 was a secondary stamp for the company that had owned this, but I was wrong. I did some research, and a few Collins axes, it looks like most of them came from South America, had an item number. So this is a Collins item number stamp. I will note that this is only Collins with a model number that I have had in my hands in person. Now, moving on, we can see some faint stamps here, but what this said was Collins & Co., Hartford. It said cast steel, warranted, and Legitimus. Now, what's interesting, the combination of these two stamps here is that the Collins factory actually put the model number over the hammer of the Legitimus mark. And this Legitimus mark is, that's a pretty big deal for Collins. But moving on, we see cast steel. And cast steel is really interesting because this axe head was not cast. It was forged, and I'll show you a couple things to prove that. But the term cast steel was similar to crucible steel, and that was the latest technique of making a high carbon steel. So that moves on to another point that makes this collectible, is that this is a forge welded head. Now, this head was soaked in some sort of vinegar or evaporus, and we can see that because we have this lighter colored gray and then a darker steel bit. But this was a forge welded head in 2, possibly 3 or 4 pieces. Let's take a look. If we look right here, we can see this mild steel that's gray, and then we have this darker steel that runs down, which is the high carbon steel that the bit was made out of. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, basically the cheeks of the axe were filleted open and a hardened steel bit was inserted in, and then it was forge welded together. Now, we don't see a lot of this around. They are around. I think that this style of a forge welded head kind of tapered off somewhere in the, I don't know, maybe in the 20s. That's just from looking at old catalogs. But the really interesting part that I see on this as far as the forge welding goes is that we can see that we do have a hardened pole. But if we look really closely, we see what looks like a crack right here. And we see that again on this other side. So I'm not sure, I'm not a blacksmith, but it almost seems to me that they forge welded another piece of high carbon steel on the pole, because this was designed to still pound pegs and possibly spikes. Now, some more artifacts here that we see to show that this was a forge welded design is it looks like there's a crack right there. But that's not a crack. On this side, it's a little more evident. That seam runs even further up. So these were completely separated and pounded together, possibly in 2 pieces, because we see it again on the backside. Now, some of the Swedish heads that we see, you'll see this, and even some of the Plum Nationals will see this also. But those were monolithic heads that when they drift the eye, when they put the piece of steel in, it expands the eye bigger, and then they hammer down to close it back down on the eye drift. But I'm almost curious if this was a four-piece design, as one section, two sections, three, and then a fourth added on. Now, moving on to the most mysterious part of this axe is the secondary stamp we have here. Now, to me, I see it says war, but I also see that that is likely a stamp of a V that was turned upside down to substitute for the A, because we don't have the little cross section that would go right there. Now, I have searched through the internet a bit and looking at, big shipbuilding companies from the turn of the century, which, we can see with the cast steel date or the cast steel stamp, and that it is a forge welded head, that this is somewhere in the late 1800s, early 1900s. One more supporting detail is that the Legitimus stamp came around, I believe, in 1875. So looking at shipbuilding companies from that turn of the century time, I'm looking for initials of WAR, W-A-R, that would be the initials of a shipbuilding company, and I have found none. Now, that doesn't mean this may not have been a shipbuilding company. This could have been used in timber framing. It's not, and when we say shipbuilding, we're talking wooden ships, with wooden masts. So it's a mystery. If anybody has information on war, let me know. That'd be great. By the way, guys, if you're liking this content, hit that thumbs up button. Now let's look at this. This is rare to me, to find an axe that has a proper grind on it still remaining with very few chips. Is hard to find. I would say 1 out of 100 axes have a serviceable edge left on them. Most axes, if they ever did have a proper edge, somebody got a hold of them. They're splitting firewood, chopping into the rocks, everything, and that proper edge gets destroyed. Now let's look at the edge. This is interesting here. So this side of the bevel, and this is an asymmetrical bevel, and this is why this is interesting. This is set up proper for hewing applications and carpentry, basically. So this side of the bevel is 18 millimeters, but if we flip it over, it's noticeably wider bevel, and we're getting into 23 millimeters. So this wide bevel would have been the side that is contacting along the beam to hew with. The other thing that we see is that it appears that this edge is ground further back, and that could have been from wear, but it also could have been that the user of this axe, or whoever maintained this axe, ground that specifically more for a slicing motion, right? As opposed to having a perfectly radiused edge. So I would assume that this was hung for a left-handed user, with this being the toe and this being the heel. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to show you this badass piece that my buddy gave me last weekend, and share some more interesting and unique traits on an axe that we don't see that often. So Again, if you guys like the video, hit that thumbs up. If you're not subscribed and you want to see more of this and get the notifications, you could subscribe, hit the notification bell and all that. But that's a wrap, guys. Have a good day.